Anita grew up in a good but poor family. Her parents met at the university. Steve was 27 years old, a young lecturer who attracted the attention of the entire female philological faculty. It was there that young Deborah, a first-year student, fell under his spell, and the young teacher was charmed by the modest girl in a simple dress, with such beautiful and kind grey eyes that he saw them whenever he closed his own. The young couple married immediately after Deborah's graduation. Steve dreamed of becoming a renowned writer. He wrote prolifically, published in literary journals, and was quite well known in literary circles. But this was not enough for him. He yearned for nationwide, even global fame. Deborah bore the brunt of their daily life. She nobly accepted that she had married a creative soul and bravely decided to dedicate her life to serving him. She did not complain and admired her husband, but he could not achieve the fame he desired. The birth of their daughter, whom they named Anita, provided a brief respite from his creative failures. The young father was overjoyed. Inspired, he wrote a wonderful heartfelt story titled The Daughter. The writer won a literary contest and was over the moon. He planned to write a novel that he expected to become a bestseller, but creating with a newborn proved much more challenging. The baby cried and demanded attention. Steve struggled to concentrate and often took out his frustrations on his wife. Deborah continued to indulge her husband. The novel did not come together. Soon it was revealed that Deborah was expecting their second child. Both parents were shocked, as Anita was only 6 months old. Deborah briefly considered getting rid of it, but Steve stopped her. "Absolutely not," he said firmly. "You will give birth and we will raise this child. I know I sometimes act like a reckless teenager and it's not easy for you, but believe me, I love you, and I love our daughter, and I will love our second child with all my heart." Deborah was incredibly happy. The second pregnancy was much easier than the first. While Anita had been a handful, the second baby caused no trouble. The baby boy was born on New Year's Eve and became a gift for the whole family. Tommy grew into a calm boy, easy to care for. Deborah struggled with the 2 children, but she managed. Her husband was truly inspired. Despite the occasional noise, he began working on his novel. He showed the first chapters to his colleagues, who were full of praise. They said success awaited Steve. In the summer, the family moved to their country house. It was old, the plot overgrown, but it was still pleasant to be there. They had their own garden with apple and pear trees, currant and raspberry bushes around the perimeter, fresh air, a gazebo, and a river right by the house. It was pure, carefree happiness. Unfortunately, it did not last long. August was unusually cold that year. Temperatures dropped to 17 degrees and heavy rains fell. The house was not heated and the indoor air was damp. Both Anita and Tommy caught colds. The village had no hospital, only a medical station. The children were examined and prescribed mixtures, and the parents were advised to dress them warmly. Soon Anita's condition improved, but Tommy's worsened. When they brought him to the hospital, his temperature was nearly 40 degrees. Deborah wept. Tommy's hands trembled, and the doctors diagnosed Tommy with advanced pneumonia. Tragically, they could not save him. 4 days later, he passed away. The family was overwhelmed with grief. After the funeral, the young mother was admitted to a clinic with a nervous breakdown, and the father began to drink heavily. Anita, nearly 2 years old, was taken in by her maternal grandparents. A month later, Deborah began to recover and slowly returned to life. She took Anita back, but Steve could not cope with his loss. He continued to drink and could not be stopped. He abandoned his novel and withdrew from normal life. He began missing lectures and rarely appeared at the university. Initially, his colleagues understood and sympathized with his tragedy. However, this could not continue indefinitely. 3 months after Tommy's death, the dean called Steve into his office. "Steve, you know how highly I regard you," he said kindly. I understand the pain you and Deborah are going through, and I sympathize deeply with your loss. But you must understand, work is work. I cannot cover for you, and your absence is forever. The headmaster has been asking about the situation on the faculty, and he is not satisfied. Here's what we'll do. I'll allow you 2 more weeks to pull yourself together and return to your normal routine. You have a wife and a young daughter to think about. I can't, Steve said, breaking down in tears. Fire me now. I won't be able to pull myself together. I can't do anything about it. I'm a wretch. I know Deborah doesn't deserve this, but I can't help it. You will. The dean tried to comfort him. However, Steve, true to his word, could not return to his former life. He did not appear at the university, and they let him go. The young family found themselves on the brink of financial ruin, having lost their only source of income. Fortunately, Deborah's parents helped out. They ran a small farm and regularly supplied the family with eggs, meat, honey, vegetables, and berries from the garden. That's how they managed. However, money was still needed. Steve continued to drink, leaving Deborah no choice but to find a job. She had no work experience, but she had a degree in philology. So, she got a job at the library. In the evenings, she worked there as well, cleaning the floors. Anita was sent to kindergarten. Fortunately, the girl was obedient and a joy to raise, but Deborah still hardly had enough time or energy for her daughter. Leave him, Deborah's friends advised. You see, Steve is a lost cause, a drunk. He's no help, only trouble. A man should be the backbone of the family, a protector for you and your child. But you're carrying everything alone, solving his problems and yours. At first, Deborah brushed off these thoughts, but after a year of endless work and her husband's drinking, she finally decided to talk to him about a divorce. Steve was taken aback. Deborah, what are you saying? I love you. I love you endlessly. You know that. I'm a fool and an alcoholic. I admit it, but I'll change. Believe me. He fell to his knees before his wife. I've given you a chance before, Steve. You know I love you too, but I don't have the strength to live like this anymore. I work like a horse, supporting the whole family. We lost Tommy. It's a great sorrow. I grieved his death no less than you. But we still have a daughter. Or have you forgotten? She's alive. Imagine that. She needs your love too. She needs to be raised. Steve was stunned. His wife's words and her real intention to divorce seemed to sober him up for good. Without rising from his knees, he promised her he would come to his senses and return to life. Deborah decided to give him another chance. Fortunately, her husband kept his word. He truly quit drinking and found a job as a proofreader at the local newspaper. The pay was modest, but the work was not demanding. Deborah was grateful for this. Her life became a little easier. She even stopped cleaning floors. There was no longer such an urgent need for extra work. Life gradually returned to its usual course. The family lived modestly, but relatively peacefully. Deborah continued to work at the library, and Steve at the newspaper. His drinking habit was almost overcome, though he occasionally still had a drink. These were rare cases that worried his wife but did not cause her to panic. Anita grew into a smart, talented girl. She took after her parents, loved literature, and wrote fairy tales and poems from an early age. Over time, Steve also resumed his writing habits, steadily working on his novel. He decided to dedicate it to his late son. Anita was 12 when her father let her read the first chapters. The girl was still very young and didn't understand everything, but she could feel that it was a great work, on par with those she studied in school. This made her proud of her father. Classmates sometimes teased her for being poor. The girl, indeed, wore the same dresses for years, which were noticeably too small. played with the same toys, and instead of expensive resorts, she visited her grandparents in the village. But she knew that her parents were spiritually rich, and her father was a genius. All this gave her strength and helped her stand up for herself. "What do you even know about life? All your wealth is nothing compared to the riches of the soul, and we have plenty of that in our family," she would proudly declare during breaks. Once her father took her to the newspaper's anniversary celebration at a restaurant, a place she had only seen in movies. She was amazed by the luxurious setting and delicacies, but the guests impressed her even more. Officials and businessmen who advertised in the newspaper came to congratulate the editorial staff. One of them, during the celebration, rushed to the table where Steve and his daughter were sitting and began enthusiastically shaking the writer's hand. "Steve, my dear, it's you," he exclaimed. "Remember me? It's me, Walter Hamilton. We went to school together, played football in the courtyard, remember? Well, good to see you. And I never forget you. You haven't changed a bit. With those curls of yours, no one could mistake you for anyone else. So how are you, my friend?" "Walter? Yes, I remember. Those were good times. Carefree. I'm doing okay, working quietly, proofreading at the newspaper," Steve replied, somewhat embarrassed. "And what about the university? Didn't you teach at the philology department?" Walter asked, surprised. "I did, but life took a turn, and now I'm here," Steve stammered. "I see. And what about your writing? Are you still creating?" Walter persisted. "I am, but not with the same enthusiasm or on the same scale," Steve reluctantly admitted. It was clear that this conversation was uncomfortable for him. At that moment, a young man, around 18, strikingly similar to Walter, approached them. "Carl, come here. I want to introduce you to a great man," Walter called out. "This is Steve Kreider, a writer, doctor of philology, my childhood friend. You can't imagine what poems and stories he wrote as a child. Even I, with my limited mind, understood that they were great works. A true talent. I'm sure your name will resonate throughout the country, if not the world. And this is my son Carl, also my pride and joy," Walter introduced. "Nice to meet you, Carl. I had the pleasure of being friends with your father in our youth. Unfortunately, I don't know what he does now," Steve replied. "Oh, my life is quite mundane. I run my own factory for paving stones. We even advertise in your newspaper," Walter explained. "Not bad," Steve commented. "It is what it is. I can't complain about life, although there's not much poetry in it," Walter said with a smile. "Will your son follow in your footsteps?" the writer asked. "I hope so. It would be great to pass on my life's work to my successor, not a stranger. Carl is not my only son. I also have an older one, Victor. He's already involved in the business." "And is this your daughter?" the businessman said, nodding towards Anita, who blushed. "Yes, this is my daughter Anita," her father said, putting an arm around her. "She's a beauty. Well, it was good to see you. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out," Walter said, handing Steve his business card before leaving with his son. "Walter, wait," Steve called out. "Since you mentioned my writing, I've just finished a novel. It's critical to me. Could you take a look at it?" "Of course," Walter replied. "Carl, please take these pages. But do me a favour and send an electronic copy to my email as well, so it doesn't get lost. The address is on the card. I'll be happy to help with publication if needed," Walter added before walking away, as the editor-in-chief was calling him over. Steve handed his manuscript to Carl, who followed his father. Anita noticed the spark in her father's eyes. He instantly brightened, despite having been sullen throughout the celebration. He even dared to give a toast. The girl saw firsthand how important this novel was to her father, and how much he yearned for its publication. However, her thoughts that evening were mainly elsewhere. Anita had fallen in love for the first time. She was captivated by the silent, dark-eyed young man impeccably dressed in what was clearly an expensive suit, with an elegant watch on his right wrist. On the bus ride home, sitting next to her inebriated father, she closed her eyes and imagined riding with Carl in his luxurious car, heading straight to Paris. The next day, Steve sent the electronic version of his novel to Walter's email and began to wait. He announced to his wife and daughter that they would soon live in prosperity. The man was convinced that his work would be a success, with large print runs, reprints, a new book contract, literary awards, interviews, accolades, and all the trappings of success. Deborah could hardly believe her ears. She had long stopped believing in fairy tales. Life had dealt her many blows. For her, the fairy tale was that her husband had stopped drinking and found a job. She couldn't imagine anyone voluntarily investing significant funds in publishing someone else's book, even if it was a childhood friend. Nevertheless, Deborah wisely kept her thoughts to herself and allowed her husband to remain optimistic. She saw how happy he was, even buying her flowers a few times. Anita, however, believed in her father wholeheartedly. She hoped that the wealthy businessman from the restaurant would keep his word and help her father gain fame. After the novel's release, their family would finally become rich, and her classmates would stop teasing her about being poor. More than that, she would transfer to the best school in the city and buy many beautiful dresses in every colour and style, and even a horse. She had long dreamed of owning a horse and riding it across the fields like a heroine from a 19th century novel. But what she looked forward to most was rising to the same social status as the object of her affection, Carl. Currently, she felt awkward even imagining them together. He was a wealthy young man from a well-off family, and she was a poor girl, albeit a proud one. She would tell herself this, yet she couldn't help but dream that once her father's novel was published, she would surely become Carl's bride. If only it would happen soon, she thought. But time passed, and Walter still hadn't called. No literary agents contacted Steve, and there were no offers from publishers. Nothing happened, neither after a month nor two, nor 3. The writer called his childhood friend, but only received voicemail, which indifferently informed him that the subscriber was unavailable. Steve was devastated by this turn of events. The indifference he faced felt like a genuine tragedy. It led him to start drinking again. Deborah was at a loss, unable to muster the strength to pull her husband out of his drinking binges. During his sober moments, he would swear to her that it was the last time, promising to quit drinking and abandon his dreams of becoming a successful writer. But Deborah no longer believed him. She had given him too many chances before, and her doubts were justified. Steve continued to drink. He wasn't fired from his job, but was demoted to part-time, which significantly affected the family budget. Anita had to give up her dreams of a better life and fancy clothes. Moreover, the family had to live even more modestly. What hurt Anita the most was her delusionment with Carl and his family. His father had initially promised to help her father publish his novel, giving him hope, only to heartlessly renege on his promise without explanation. The girl projected her disappointment onto Walter's son. Her little heart was broken. Deborah had to start cleaning at the library again to make ends meet, but this situation couldn't last forever. After a year of such struggles, despite the pain, Deborah finally filed for divorce, resolute in her decision. This was another blow for Steve. His life was crumbling on all fronts, but Deborah refused to hear any more excuses. She was determined to go through with the divorce. Her parents constantly urged them to move back to the village. "Darling, since things didn't work out with Steve, come back to us. We have a big house, plenty of room for everyone. There's the garden, the vegetable patch, the chickens. Why are you and Anita cramped in that tiny, shabby apartment? What kind of life is that? And your father and I are getting old. "We could use some help around the house," her mother would say. "All right, I've given up on my own fate, but Anita is at an age when she should be blossoming, and I'm taking her to the village. Is that fair?" Deborah would ponder. "It's all right, dear. Nothing bad will happen. We have a school in the village and it's not the worst. There are young people here. Anita won't be bored. She loves nature. It's her element. Everything will be fine. You'll see," her mother insisted. Eventually, Deborah agreed to the move. Anita wasn't thrilled about it. After all, she was no longer a toddler, but a high school student who wanted to enjoy the pleasures of city life. However, she understood that their family had no other choice. Living in a cramped, old apartment building was unbearable, yet Anita was determined to return to the city after finishing school and enrolling in college. She saw that her parents' philological education hadn't brought them happiness or prosperity, so she decided to pursue a technical degree and become an engineer. She knew her family couldn't afford to pay for her education, so she had to aim for a scholarship, which required diligent study. Fortunately, the rural environment provided few distractions. Anita paid close attention to her teachers during classes and studied hard at home. She blossomed into a beautiful young woman, inheriting her mother's lovely brown eyes and charming smile, and her father's stature and luxurious curls. Local boys admired her, but Anita didn't reciprocate, believing her happiness lay in the city, where she planned to attend college. She maintained regular contact with her father and occasionally visited him. A couple of times he showed up at their village with clear signs of a drinking binge. He didn't pay child support, having no means to do so, but sometimes he would give her a little money for her birthday or New Year. Deborah didn't complain. She knew there was little more she could expect from her ex-husband. In Anita's final year of high school, she studied even harder and passed her exams with outstanding results, among the best in the region. This allowed her to secure a place at the technical university and begin her journey toward becoming an engineer. The girl was going to live at her father's place. Steve was glad that his daughter would be moving in with him. However, the prospect of them living together worried Deborah. Over the years, her ex-husband had cut down on his drinking, but hadn't quit entirely. She feared for her daughter's well-being in such an environment. "Mum, I'm not a child anymore. I'm 18. I'll figure it out. And you know, that even when Dad drinks, he's not violent. He usually just reads poems aloud and then passes out. Besides, the apartment has 2 rooms, Anita reassured her mother. Anita and her father's life unfolded in a predictable pattern. Each lived in their own room, with Anita handling the cleaning and cooking, much to Steve's delight. Occasionally he would drink, but he remained quiet and caused no trouble. "You know, dear, ever since you returned to me, it's as if I've grown wings," he confided in Anita one October evening. "I know I ruined our lives and I can't undo it, but I'm so glad you're here with me. I've even started writing my novel again, the one I worked on when you were little. After Walter's betrayal, I abandoned it, losing hope for publication. But now I thought, why not? If I want to write, I will, regardless of whether anyone reads it or not." "I'm so happy for you, Daddy," Anita replied, tears welling up in her eyes. "You're a genius, even if unrecognised, for now. I'm sure your novel will be appreciated one day." Steve also shed a tear. That evening he drank again, but, as usual, quietly and without disturbance. Anita retreated to her room to prepare for a seminar. The next morning, there was no sound from her father's room. Before leaving for the university, she decided to check on him and let him know breakfast was ready. Entering his room, she found him lying on the couch, motionless. At first she thought he was sleeping, but a sense of unease gripped her. Approaching him, she realized he wasn't breathing. Panicked, she called an ambulance and attempted CPR, but it was too late. The paramedics confirmed that Steve had passed away from acute heart failure. Scattered on the table nearby were pages of his manuscript. The funeral drew an unexpectedly large crowd. Despite his struggles, Steve was a talented and kind man, beloved by many. Friends, university colleagues, students, newspaper staff, and local writers all came to pay their respects. Everyone expressed their condolences to Anita, who stood stoically beside her mother, barely holding back tears. "I still love him, dear, and always will," Deborah whispered to her daughter at the cemetery. "I know, Mum, I know," Anita replied, fighting back her own tears. But she couldn't afford to be weak. She had to find the strength to move forward. Beyond her personal goals, she now had a new dream: to publish her father's novel as a tribute to him. Though she lacked the funds, she was determined to earn the money someday. First, however, she needed to address practical matters. Though her father had lived modestly, he had handled all the household bills. His apartment was spacious, and the utility costs were significant. "Darling, let's sell it and buy you a smaller place. It will be easier for you," her mother suggested. "No, Mum, I can't. This apartment is our family home. It's filled with history, and I want to keep it for future generations," Anita insisted. "But how will we manage? I wish I could help you financially, but my salary barely covers groceries," Deborah worried. "Don't worry, Mum. After the winter session, I'll find a job. Many of my classmates do the same," Anita reassured her. True to her word, after acing her January exams, Anita began her job search. Some of her classmates handed out flyers or posted ads, but such work didn't appeal to her. She found it too menial and unstable. "Listen," her friend Phyllis said one day, "I work part-time at a local clothing store. The staff is all students. The pay is decent and the owners are generous. They have other businesses, so the store is more of a hobby for them. Payments are stable and the team is friendly. Want to join us?" "I'd love to," Anita replied eagerly. However, Phyllis couldn't offer her the job she hoped for. The staff was fully hired, and they weren't looking for more salespeople. "The only opening is for a cleaner. The work isn't hard, just mopping the floors in the mornings and evenings, but it's not very glamorous," Phyllis explained. "I'm not afraid of any work. If the pay is good and stable and the team is friendly, I'll take the cleaning job," Anita responded. "In that case, I'll let the boss know I found someone. You're right, start as a cleaner and you'll move up to sales when a spot opens," Phyllis said, winking at her friend. In February, Anita started her new job. The store was large, modern, and beautifully decorated, with eye-catching window displays and vibrant clothing. The atmosphere was lively, with pleasant music playing and friendly staff. The customer flow was steady, and the merchandise was popular. Anita was determined to make the most of this opportunity, hoping it would be a stepping stone to better things. Anita watched as her colleagues advised customers on new styles, accepted returns, and hung dresses and skirts on racks. She enjoyed the bustling atmosphere. It helped distract her from her loss. Anita hoped that one day she would indeed be promoted from cleaner to salesperson. Meanwhile, she diligently polished the floors and display cases, grateful for the work ethic instilled in her. To avoid upsetting her mother, she told her she was working as a salesperson. With her first paycheck, Anita easily covered her utility bills, bought new dresses and a bag from the same store, and saved a little for the future. She felt strong and more independent. One day in July, a handsome young man entered the store. The salesgirls immediately melted and smiled broadly upon seeing him. Anita only saw him from behind and didn't get a good look at his face. "Who is that?" she asked Phyllis. "That's our boss, Carl Hamilton, and he's quite the heartthrob, don't you think?" Phyllis replied with a smile. "Indeed, he is," Anita responded. She felt the ground slip from under her feet, never expecting to see her first love again, especially under these circumstances. but life is full of surprises. Anita stood in the utility closet with her cleaning supplies, watching as Carl inspected his property. He was friendly, calm, and incredibly handsome. "Who is responsible for keeping things clean here?" he asked loudly, approaching the gleaming glass display case. "He's asking about you," Phyllis whispered, pushing Anita into the sales area. She stepped forward awkwardly. "Me," Anita replied, clearing her throat confidently. "Are you new here? I haven't seen you before," Carl remarked, surprised. "I've been working here since winter," the young woman said. "I see, and what is your name? You have a strangely familiar face. Have we met before?" Carl asked, squinting. "I doubt it," Anita replied coldly. "Well, maybe it just seemed that way. Anyway, I want to thank you for your good work. The display case is sparkling and the floor is so clean. That's worth a lot," the businessman said. "Thank you. I do my best," Anita responded. Carl nodded and moved on to other tasks. After he left, Anita asked Phyllis, "Listen, you said this store isn't his main business. What else do they own? And why do they have this store?" "Oh, they own a lot. They have restaurants, stores, and much more. But their main source of income is a paving slab factory," Phyllis explained. "I see," Anita said, continuing to probe. "And is the business a family affair? This Carl looks so young. Did he build the empire himself?" "No, of course not," Phyllis replied. "The business is a family affair. It was founded by his father, Walter, but he died in a car accident about 7 years ago. They were returning from some celebration, maybe a newspaper or TV channel anniversary. Carl was driving. He was just a young guy with little driving experience. It started raining and he lost control on the slippery road, crashing into a pole. The young driver had bruises and scratches, but his father died instantly." "When did you say this happened?" Anita asked, surprised. "About 7 years ago. I can even tell you the exact date, August 2nd. That day is a family mourning day for the Hamiltons. I follow Carl on social media. Every year on that day, he posts a photo of his father and shares memories of him. It was a tragedy for the guy," Phyllis said. "He basically killed his own father. Can you imagine what he went through? And to make matters worse, Carl's older brother Victor couldn't forgive him for the accident. They didn't speak for a long time, but eventually found some compromise. Still, the tension between the brothers remains. And they say that because of this fatal accident, Carl still hasn't started a family," interjected Susan, a saleswoman standing nearby. "I know he saw a psychologist for a long time to work through this trauma, but he never fully recovered. He's afraid to start his own family because he fears he might destroy it. Like what happened with his father." "So he doesn't date at all?" Anita asked. "Oh no, quite the opposite. He flirts with many women, but his relationships are short and not serious. It's called avoidant attachment. I'm studying to be a psychologist," Susan said with a smile. "Girls, let's wrap it up. The administrator is coming and she'll scold us for chatting." The friends dispersed and continued working, but that night Anita couldn't stop thinking about Carl. It turned out that his father hadn't helped with the novel because he died in the accident, and she and her father had cursed him. What a nightmare! How terribly foolish it all turned out. And how sorry she felt for Carl, she thought aloud. After that, they began to cross paths with Carl in the store more frequently. "Hey, why has he been coming around so often?" Anita asked Phyllis. "Apparently there's some property and business restructuring going on between him and his brother," Phyllis replied. "Remember, Susan mentioned a conflict between them? Well, it seems they've decided to divide their enterprises. Victor will keep the factory, while Carl will take over the restaurants, shops and other ventures." "I see. Italian-style drama," Anita remarked. "So is their business strictly a family affair? No partners, just passing it down to their children?" "That's how it looks," Phyllis said, "except they need to have those children first." Does Victor have an avoidant attachment style too? Anita asked ironically. No, it's the opposite with him, Phyllis explained. Victor is serious. He's always busy, rarely smiles, and solves all the problems. Honestly, without him, their entire empire would have crumbled long ago. Carl is very charming, but also careless and irresponsible at times. Victor is different, but because of his busy schedule, he has no time for a personal life or relationships. He's never been married and has no children, so the brothers have no one to pass the family business to, yet. Got it, Anita replied. By a strange coincidence later that day, Anita encountered Victor in the parking lot of the shopping centre. He had come to inspect the store before officially handing it over to his brother, while Anita was leaving her morning shift. Distracted by her phone, she didn't notice the approaching car. The driver couldn't react in time and hit her. She fell but got up on her own. I'm so sorry, miss, I didn't see you, the frightened man said, exiting the vehicle. His resemblance to Carl was striking, so Anita immediately knew who he was. It's okay, I'm fine. It was my fault for not paying attention to the road, Anita said, blushing and rubbing her knee. Are you sure you're all right? Victor asked. Yes, my leg hurts a bit, probably just a bruise, but it's nothing serious, she assured him. No, we can't leave it like this. If your leg hurts, we should go to the emergency room. It might be a fracture. Let me take you, Victor insisted. Anita agreed and they went to the clinic, where it was confirmed that she only had minor bruises. I would appreciate it if we didn't report this as an accident, Victor said, but I will compensate you for the trouble. He handed her a few bills. Anita tried to refuse, but he insisted. You probably need to take some time off work. Where do you work? He asked. Anita replied and Victor laughed. What a coincidence. I'm involved with that store, so I can authorize a week of paid leave for you. And please let me give you a ride home. You have an injured leg after all. On the way, Anita shared that she was studying to be an engineer and working part-time as a cleaner. Victor mentioned that he also had a technical education. So we're practically colleagues, he joked. And regarding your part-time job, I'll think about transferring you to a different position. I believe you deserve better. For now, get well soon. Anita thanked him, and the next week she was resting and recovering. Upon returning to work, she found her colleagues upbeat. What's going on? Why is everyone so happy? She asked Phyllis. You won't believe it, Phyllis exclaimed. Management is giving away 30,000 to one of the employees. What? Anita said in disbelief. Yes, you heard right, Susan chimed in. The business has officially been transferred to Carl, and he decided to celebrate by giving away 1,000,000 rubles to mark the occasion and the store's anniversary. He's doing it to show off, but who cares? We have a chance to win big money, girls. Anita reluctantly took a ticket and received number 77. And it was a lucky number. Carl spun a wheel with numbered balls, and out popped number 77. Phyllis and Susan cheered, while Anita stood in shock and couldn't believe it. She had just returned to work after the accident and meeting Victor, and now she had won a significant amount of money, thanks to his brother. It felt surreal. Pinch me, she said to Phyllis and Susan. They obliged and nudged her toward the centre of the room. Go on, don't be shy, her colleagues encouraged her. Anita, still in belief, made her way to Carl, who shook her hand. Congratulations! Our winner is Anita, Carl announced, asking the audience to applaud. Anita couldn't believe her luck. It felt like a dream, a very strange and unexpected one. She was also surprised that Carl remembered her name, considering her low position in the company. Well, a cheque for the corresponding amount will be issued in your name shortly. Have you already decided what to spend the money on? The businessman asked the winner in the same cheerful voice. Yes, Anita replied, unexpectedly boldly. I will spend all this money to publish my father's novel. My dad recently passed away, and I really want to pay tribute to his literary talent. That sounds interesting. May I ask what was your father's name? Was he a well-known writer? The entrepreneur continued to bombard the young woman with questions. My father's name was Steve Kreider. He wrote this novel his entire life. I really want this work to see the light of day, Anita proudly replied. She noticed that after these words Carl suddenly hesitated, and an awkward pause ensued. I hope everything works out for you, the man managed to say seriously after a brief pause, attempting to return to his jovial demeanour. All right, let's continue the celebration. Champagne for everyone. A party began in the hall. Phyllis and Susan took glasses and brought one to Anita. Congratulations on your win. Let's drink to you, Phyllis chirped. Yes, congratulations, and what a cool dream, to publish your father's novel. Or did you just say that for effect? And actually going to buy yourself a car? Susan winked. No, Anita replied honestly. I really want to publish my dad's book. I would have done it anyway, even if it meant saving up for a long time. But this is an incredible stroke of luck. As for drinking, thank you, but I don't drink. Oh, come on, why not? Phyllis asked, surprised. The thing is, my father was a very talented man whose life was ruined by alcoholism. So I decided early on to never touch alcohol, Anita firmly replied. Got it. Well, then I wish you a good time without the champagne. Phyllis smiled, taking Susan by the arm and leading her to the other end of the hall. At that moment, Anita noticed Victor standing in the doorway, staring intently at her. This gaze made the young woman blush and lower her eyes. She was not an experienced beauty, accustomed to such attention from men, yet even her lack of romantic experience didn't prevent her from recognizing that look. It was the gaze of a man deeply in love, one who had lost his head over a girl. Anita didn't know what to do or how to react. She hurried toward the exit, hoping to slip past Victor. She wanted a moment to collect herself and decide what to do next, but Victor intercepted her at the door. Anita, congratulations on your win. Do you recognize me? The man asked. Thank you. Of course, I recognize you. Victor Walter, the blushing young woman replied. Honestly, when my brother came up with this prank idea, I was skeptical. Frankly, it seemed silly to me, but now that you've won, I'm glad it happened this way. Are you rushing? May I invite you for coffee? He asked. Well, maybe just for a little while? The young woman hesitated. Of course, I won't take up much of your time. I have something to tell you, believe me, Victor continued. All right, let's have coffee, Anita replied. The man and the young woman went down to the cafe on the first floor of the shopping centre. Anita, I need to tell you an interesting story. My father was a practical man, but he always respected creative people. He often talked about his friend, Steve Kreider, a talented writer. He regretted losing touch with him and always said he wished he could see him again and read his poems or stories. My father was sure that your dad continued to write. He said he would gladly help him publish a collection of his works if the need arose. My father understood that creative people often struggle financially. He was a very kind man, which is why he built such a successful business empire. I believe his wealth is a compensation for good personal qualities, Victor explained. So, what are you getting at? Anita ventured. I'm saying that my father never managed to reconnect with your dad, even though he really wanted to. After his passing, your father's name stuck in my mind, Steve Kreider. I decided that, in my father's memory, I would help this talent break through and make his name known to as many people as possible. But I was always so busy with work, meetings, and never had the time to search for him. although it's a bit embarrassing to admit that now. Then I met you. The circumstances weren't great, that situation in the parking lot, but nevertheless, firstly, I liked you right away. And secondly, when I heard your full name, Anita Kreider, at the first aid station, I was convinced it was fate. It brought me to you, partly to fulfill my father's wishes. And when I heard what you planned to do with the money, I was astonished. It's so noble, Victor explained. Anita silently sipped her coffee. She didn't know how to react to what was happening. The feeling of being in a dream only intensified. So, what are you getting at? Anita repeated her earlier question. I would like to cover the costs of publishing your father's novel, Victor confidently replied. I think both our fathers would be pleased with this arrangement. Additionally, I would like to invite you on a date. I find you very attractive, Anita. I know I'm older than you, but is 15 years really such a big difference? I'm not even 40 yet, but I won't pressure you. The decision is yours. Honestly, I'm shocked by what you've told me. Regarding the date, I'm more concerned about our social differences than our age gap. You're a successful businessman, and I'm just a student working as a cleaner. Yes, I'm young, but I'm not a child, and I don't believe in fairy tales. Even as a child, I found the story of Cinderella implausible. So, I'm afraid I must decline, Anita said. Victor was visibly disappointed, but accepted her refusal gracefully. I understand your feelings and see your logic, but social differences shouldn't concern you. When choosing a partner, I focus mainly on her character and mindset, not her wealth or other factors. I am well off and can fully support my partner financially, he continued, trying to persuade her. Forgive me, but it sounds like you're trying to buy me, Anita said in amazement. No, not at all. I didn't mean to offend you. All right, I hear you. Let's close this topic, but regarding your father's novel, will you at least allow me to cover the publishing costs? Victor asked. Victor, please forgive me, but I want to handle this myself, and for a good reason. Years ago, your father promised to help mine publish his novel, but it never happened. Anita recounted the story of their meeting at the newspaper anniversary and how Steve waited in vain for Walter's call, but never called because he had passed away before his friend. I'm truly sorry it turned out this way. I wasn't aware of this meeting. In that case, I insist on covering all the expenses, Victor said firmly. All right, I'll think about it. Let's exchange contacts and stay in touch, Anita concluded. Agreed, Victor said. There's one more thing I'd like to discuss. You work as a cleaner in the store. While all work is honourable, I believe you deserve better. I'd like to offer you a promotion to sales associate. I understand that accepting a higher position from me might be against your principles, he said. You're absolutely right, Anita replied. And regarding the offer to move from cleaning to sales, I must ask, isn't the store now completely under your brother's management? Victor paused, realizing she was right. Don't worry, I'll figure something out. I'll discuss it with him. Consider the matter resolved, he assured her. All right. It was a pleasure talking to you. Goodbye, Anita said, leaving the cafe. She decided to take a taxi home, knowing that taking the bus might overwhelm her with emotions. Until that moment, life hadn't been kind to her. She was used to fighting for every bit of happiness, but sometimes days come that turn everything upside down and bestow generous gifts instantly. Anita considered Victor's offer to become a sales associate. For a moment, she thought about quitting her job altogether, now that she had a lot of money. But she quickly reminded herself that the money was meant for publishing her father's novel, and she would still need to support herself afterward. She decided she would contact Victor and accept his offer for a promotion. As for his asking her out, Anita was flattered by the attention of such an esteemed man, especially one who wasn't too interested in women. However, her heart belonged to Victor's brother Carl. Though she had resented him for a time because of the situation with her father, love ultimately won out, especially after seeing him again in the store. Yet she believed Carl was out of her league. Unbeknownst to her, Carl's thoughts that evening were consumed by her. He cancelled all his meetings and a midnight date with a woman he had met recently, focusing instead on a manuscript, the one his father had intended to publish, which he had received on the day of his death. That fateful night, returning home from the restaurant, Walter had insisted that his younger son drive. "You drive, son," he said, patting Carl on the shoulder. "But Dad, I just got my license. I don't have much experience and it's pouring outside. Anything could happen." Carl tried to persuade him. "Nonsense! You need the practice. You have to get used to it," his father insisted. Carl got behind the wheel. At first everything was fine. His father was in good spirits. "It's wonderful that I got to see my childhood friend again. He's truly talented. Make sure you read his manuscript. I'll leave it on the back seat. We'll definitely publish the book. We need to support worthy people," Walter said. Then the rain intensified, reducing visibility to almost zero. Despite the conditions, Carl pressed on, unaware of the tragedy that lay ahead. "Dad, I can't see anything. What should I do?" Carl said, terrified. "Don't panic, son. You're a man. Turn the wheel." His father didn't finish before the car crashed into a pole. After that, everything was a blur for the young driver. The ambulance, police, rescuers, his father's lifeless body on the wet asphalt, and scattered pages of a manuscript. Carl vaguely remembered wandering in shock, collecting the wet, blood-stained pages. He didn't gather them all. Notably missing was the last page, with the author's name and contacts. Carl didn't remember the writer's name, even though he had met him personally. Nevertheless, he kept what remained of the manuscript. He remembered his father's last wish, to publish the book no matter what. But how could he do that without knowing the author? Over time, the idea faded from the young man's mind. Everything related to his father brought pain. He tried to numb it with casual, meaningless relationships. He didn't delve deeply into the business. Victor handled that. Although his older brother tried to hide his resentment, he struggled. He protected their father's legacy, the factory, and saw Carl as clumsy and inept, fearing he would ruin that too, as he had their father's life. No matter how hard Victor tried to push these thoughts away, he couldn't. Initially, Carl fought for his right to be their father's successor, but seeing how their conflict affected their mother, he decided to step back. He had already lost one parent and couldn't bear to lose another. Victor also showed wisdom. He kept control of the paving slab factory, but handed over other smaller family businesses to Carl. First, it was a cafe chain, and later, years down the line, it included stores. This brought Carl to the point where he met Anita. When she declared during the giveaway how she would spend the money, he immediately recognized her. It was the same girl from the restaurant that fateful evening. She was just a child then, but now a young woman, the resemblance clear. Carl remembered how years ago he found this blushing, modest girl very attractive, but she was too young. He pushed those thoughts aside even back then. He was quite romantic and dreamed of a princess for whom he could be a faithful prince. But life had other plans. He had many girlfriends, but none were his princess. The first time he saw Anita in the store, praising her for the sparkling display case, something stirred in his heart, a long-forgotten feeling. He had forgotten how pleasant it was, and all his subsequent visits to the store, which became more frequent, were not coincidental. He sought encounters with Anita, but didn't want to draw attention to himself. He didn't know how to approach her, so he continued his routine, setting up dates with strangers from social media. Business matters soon distracted him from affairs of the heart. Victor officially transferred the retail business to him, giving Carl confidence in his abilities. He accepted that he had lost his connection to the factory, but was determined to develop in other areas. But he never imagined how it would end. Fate, in the form of Anita, led him to fulfill his father's wish to publish his friend's novel. Now he knew the author's name. That evening he sat in his apartment, drinking whiskey and reading the manuscript. When he reached the description of the main character's daughter, a charming, curly-haired girl with cherry eyes and dimpled cheeks, he realized it was Anita. She was described as a lovely, rosy-cheeked, gentle, and very intelligent girl, possessing an elusive lightness and tenderness that couldn't be cultivated. One had to be born with them. She was destined to break many hearts. He barely slept that night, tossing and turning, eager for morning. He rushed to the best jewellery store in the city. "Good morning. I want to propose to my beloved. Help me choose the best ring for her," he blurted out, charming the salespeople. They eagerly assisted him, recommending a ring with a rare yellow diamond. "As rare as my chosen one," he declared, purchasing it. Leaving the store, he headed to the shop, but didn't find Anita there. He knew she was friends with the salesgirl Phyllis and went to her for information. "Why isn't Anita here?" he nervously asked, startling the girl. She thought the businessman had come to his senses after the previous day's stunt and wanted his money back. "Anita only works for us very early in the morning and late in the evening," Phyllis replied, frightened. "I see, and where might she be now?" Carl persisted. "Do not be afraid, Phyllis. I will not harm your friend. I have some good news for her." Phyllis calmed down and dictated the street name and house number. Carl headed straight there from the store. He drove as if possessed, though after his father's accident he usually drove cautiously. But this time he feared he would be too late, that he would miss his destiny, his salvation. Meanwhile, Anita was indeed at home, studying offers from publishers. She was estimating the cost of publishing a book, considering where to find a proofreader, which designer to commission for the cover, and how to promote the novel. She had much to learn, but first Anita needed to finish the book's ending, as Steve had not completed the novel. Only the final chapter remained. The girl pondered what ending would be most fitting, a happy one or a tragic one. It was amid these thoughts that Carl found her when he rang the doorbell. Hearing the bell, Anita was surprised. She was not expecting any visitors. She looked through the peephole, but saw only a large bouquet of white roses in the stairwell. "You?" Anita exclaimed, unable to hide her astonishment when she opened the door. "But what are you doing here?" "If you permit, I will come inside and explain everything," the man said. Anita led him into the apartment. Without wasting time, Carl knelt before the young woman and took out a ring box. "Dear Anita," he began, his voice trembling, "I know this will likely shock you, but I want you to be my wife. I am well aware of the reputation that precedes me. Everyone thinks I am a womanizer and a playboy, but that is only a facade. I have spent my whole life searching for the one, and I have no doubt that you are my destiny." Carl then recounted the story of their encounter in the restaurant and the accident. He placed the ring on the table and took a folder containing the cherished manuscript from his briefcase. "You see, this is proof that my words are not empty. I have kept these pages since that very day. It was a matter of honour for me to publish this book, but I did not know the author, and I am going to do it now. But no, that is secondary. First, answer the main question. Will you be my wife?" Anita sat down on a stool. 2 declarations of love in as many days. 2 offers to help publish her father's book, both from brothers. What was happening? "Carl, I must confess I am deeply shocked. Your attention flatters me immensely. Moreover, if I am to be entirely honest, I was once deeply in love with you, like a schoolgirl. Indeed, I was still a schoolgirl then. But time passed, I grew up, and yet I never loved anyone else. But I am still young, and perhaps everything lies ahead. This is all too sudden for me. I need time to think, Anita replied. That is wise, of course I understand, Carl said. My chosen one should be cautious and wise. I will not pressure you. Take as much time as you need. I will wait. With that, the man headed for the door. On the threshold he turned around. And by the way, you no longer work as a cleaner in our store. I would offer you the position of administrator. So, what do you say? Thank you. Being a salesperson would be enough for me, the young woman replied. Very well, from today I will transfer you to sales. Carl smiled and said goodbye. When he left, Anita slowly slid down the wall. Life was becoming more interesting with each passing day. The girl clearly needed advice, so she decided to turn to her mother. Upon hearing about the proposals from the two brothers, Deborah replied decisively. Do not accept either of them, my dear. These rich men are so unreliable, so unstable. Do not believe a word they say. They will toy with you and then discard you. In fact, it is best not to trust men at all. But this advice did not satisfy the girl. Her mother's reaction seemed overly cautious. So she decided to discuss the situation with her friends, Phyllis and Susan. There is no doubt, marry Victor. He is a mature individual who has dealt with his traumas. I am telling you this as a psychologist. You will not regret it, Susan said. And I am telling you this as a friend. Listen to your heart and do what it tells you. Even if you realize later that you made a mistake, you will not regret not trying, Phyllis said. Later, that very day, Anita decided to accept Carl's proposal. After all, she had loved him for many years, and the feeling could not be suppressed or conquered. It could only be allowed to manifest fully. But how should she inform her chosen one? The girl decided to find an original way to do so. Anita struggled for a long time with the final chapters of her father's novel. She lacked his literary talent, yet she was gifted enough. The last lines resolved the love conflict, and the final sentence read, "Let love prevail." Anita sent the completed manuscript to Carl in printed form, highlighting the final words in red marker. The next day, the man visited her again with the ring. "May I interpret the final chapters of the manuscript as your acceptance of my proposal?" he asked hopefully. "Yes, you can," Anita joyfully exclaimed. The young couple had to organize two important events, the wedding and the book release. Anita didn't want to delay the publication of the novel any longer. Her entire family had waited too long for this. It was crucial that the book be released by their wedding day. And so it happened. Each guest at the celebration received a copy of the novel, with Steve Kreider credited as the author. The only person not thrilled with the proceedings was Victor. He watched the kissing newlyweds with longing, imagining himself in Carl's place. "Don't be so upset. Perhaps it's just not your destiny," Susan said, approaching him during the fireworks. "What makes you think I'm upset?" Victor asked, surprised. "I'm a psychologist, and I'm good at reading people's emotions," the young woman explained. It's rather unscientific to say about destiny," Victor remarked. "Is that how they teach psychology in universities these days?" "Scientific or not, I'm a woman first, and I believe in destiny despite my education. As for how they teach psychology these days, I'd be happy to give you a lecture. But not now. Maybe when my friend's wedding is over. But not now. Maybe when my friend's wedding is over?" Susan coquettishly replied, "Well, that sounds quite tempting. How about we discuss it over dinner at a cosy restaurant?" Victor suggested. "That sounds tempting indeed." Susan played along. "I agree." A year later, Susan gave the same answer to another question from Victor, whether she would be his wife. The wedding was held in the same restaurant. By then, Anita and Carl had welcomed their first child, a boy named Steve, in honour of his grandfather. The girls rejoiced and celebrated, though Phyllis felt a bit melancholic. "You two are clever, snatching up the best catches, while I'm left high and dry," she said with a sad smile. "Dear, don't worry. Both Victor and Carl have many friends, and many of them are here today. So, don't miss your chance. Put your best foot forward," Susan advised. "You think so? Well, maybe you're right. I'll go check out the situation." Phyllis laughed, fixing her hair and heading toward the dance floor. "I'm so happy you can't even imagine," Anita said to Susan. "Just don't wait too long to have a baby. Give little Steve a cousin to play with soon." Susan blushed, and Anita instantly understood. "What? Already?" she asked the bride. "Yes, 4 months," Susan replied. "That's wonderful. And do you know what you're having?" Anita inquired. "A boy, and we've already chosen a name. Walter, after his grandfather," the bride announced. "You two are wonderful," Anita replied, looking at her little son in her arms. "I'm so glad I listened to Phyllis and my heart back then," the young mother thought. "Now I know that the only answer to any question in life is to let love win."